Hi, everybody. Welcome to our first podcast of the Beauty Outlaws.
Sometimes in the world of beauty aesthetics, it's the wild, wild west. Mixed information, unsafe practices, non-ethical standards. There's a lot of misinformation. Well, there's a new sheriff in town, and she ain't having it. Welcome to JKH Beauty Outlaw, the podcast where we uncover the truth behind the beauty industry, breaking down barriers and challenging the status quo. We'll also be keeping you up to date with the very latest info on injectables, lasers, skin services, and cutting-edge techniques, separating fact from fiction. If it's a beauty myth, we debunk it. We'll be chatting it up with industry leaders and entrepreneurs. You'll learn from the experts, get insights into the trends, and discover the stories behind the innovations shaping the future of beauty. So if you're a fellow outlaw, and we know you are, saddle up, dust off those spurs, and let's ride off into the sunset, all the while being beautiful and educated. Y'all be safe out on the trail. This is the JKH Beauty Outlaw. And now your host, a seasoned aesthetic entrepreneur, registered nurse, and a licensed esthetician, Jerry Hurst.
How about that intro? It says everything about what Beauty Outlaws is about. So welcome to the show, and I'm hosting it today from my beautiful med spa here in beautiful Orange County, California, where we've had a little bit of rain lately. We're not used to that, so all the more reason to bring it indoors and start the podcast off right. And today with that, I'm going to start my first series of podcasts, and it's called Esthetician Diaries. So with that said, I want to use this platform to interview licensed estheticians from all over the United States and share their stories, their backgrounds, and what got them in the industry. Why do they do what they do so well? And what makes them unique in this very challenging world of aesthetics? Also, follow their scope of practice. Every state works differently, and that's a huge challenge for estheticians. So today, I'm so proud to introduce three very talented and special guests. All are licensed estheticians, and they are all leaders in their field. They practice excellence daily. They exude knowledge and expertise and experience. The best part about these three ladies is they work right here with me every day in my med spa. I am privileged to introduce them to you, and it's an honor for them to join me today. So how you doing, guys?
Hi. Hello. Thank you for having us. I'm Renee Nicoludis, and I'm headed into my 27th year of being an esthetician. And I specialize in skincare, facial treatments, and also my own product line.
That's awesome.
Hi, I'm Melissa Darmazade, and I have 14 years of experience, and I specialize in waxing and hair removal of various parts.
And I'm Christy Grace, and I have 10 years experience in eyelash extensions and 6 years experience in PMU, permanent makeup, specializing in ombre powder brow.
So I would love to start with talking to you, Melissa. First of all, we have to bring up the rain and how in our spa we've talked a million times about the rain and Michigan drivers versus California drivers. And the reason why I bring that up is because Melissa is dual licensed. She has a license, carries a license in Michigan, as well as California. And whenever it rains in California, she has to giggle a little bit because the people in Michigan know how to work the weather in their cars. Unfortunately, we don't. But we all made it here safe today, right, Melissa?
We sure did.
So can you tell us a little bit about your journey into aesthetics, where you started, and what drove you into the specializing in a niche field that you have?
Well, I started working in the actual salon industry when I was really young, in my teens. And from there, I began managing salons. And eventually I got to a point where I had enough inspiration around me that I wanted to be behind the chair rather than just, behind the scenes. So and that was when I decided to leave my job. And I took a plunge, really, because I left my job. Then I had to move back in with my parents. I did all that I had to do to set myself up. And I went to beauty school, got my license, and started working immediately out of beauty school. And I ended up with an excellent mentor who mentored me in the art of hair removal, especially the art of brows. And that became very important to me because you can really transform a person with just two little things. I mean, it changes a person's face. A lot of people feel like their face has been woken up. And that became my important service that I provided, as well as also getting into the removal of other various parts. And
we call that intimate waxing, right, Melissa?
Waxing, yes.
That's a really nice way to say it here in Orange County, California. We use that word. I love that, Melissa. I love that you took kind of the plunge and you made it happen, and it shows. And I'm hoping on the screen right now we can show the before and after of Melissa's work, because it is far superior. It is beyond what you normally see. And I'm telling you, when people walk out of here, it's an experience they've never had before. She truly is a leader in the industry, in her field. And I just am enamored with her. She not only, I'm going to share one thing and let you talk about it.
Sure.
One thing I know about her is she not only started a business here, she restarted a business over in Michigan. You could tell us a little bit about that.
I did. So I had to relocate from California to Michigan after I had just started my career. And I just had to pick up and go because my husband ended up getting a job in Michigan. I had never even been to Michigan. I didn't know anything but the fact that the Great Lakes were there. So I relocated and was definitely nervous as to how they were going to receive me. And they actually received me with open arms in Michigan, honestly. And my career, it took maybe about 5 to 6 months, and it just blew up. I, used social media. At the time, social media was a lot less complicated in using it. And the people that I worked with out there at the salon that I ended up working at really empowered me and just helped me build. And I became one of the busiest estheticians they had because I was fully booked for 7 months and I was working 5 days a week. And it was fantastic. It was really a fun experience, not only professionally, but also just on a personal level too, because I met so many great souls. And then just being ripped away from the start of my career, I once again got ripped away from that too. And my husband was like, we got to go back to Cali. And I was like, oh, wow, great. So how am I going to tell hundreds of people that I'm just leaving? Bye. Sorry. And that's what I did. So then we left again after 5 years, after I had been so just I was just really in it, and we left and we came back and I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? And then through a person that I will not mention, I was introduced to you.
Yes. The best thing that ever happened, by the way.
I am
the 3 best things that ever happened.
Didn't know what to think. I came in here thinking, oh my gosh, I'm so nervous, because I'm not always the most comfortable at even though this industry, you're meeting new faces all the time, but it's different when you're kind of on stage behind your chair. I kind of call it, where you're okay, I've got to I've got my act, you know, but then, you know, behind the scenes, when you have to meet some new faces, you're like, oh my gosh, hi, I'm Melissa. I'm awkward a little bit. And then I met you and you had just had a treatment done and you were like full of fire. I'm like, this woman just had needles shoved all up in her face and she's just so happy and like so excited and so full of energy. I was like, oh my gosh, like she's my vibe and she cusses.
You're outlaws. You're outlaws.
You're outlaws. And I met Renee too, and I was like, oh my God, she's like crunchy mama bear. Like she's so like calm and collective, and then she's also got that fire in her eyes too. So it was
Fire in her eyes.
Yeah. But you two were the first that I met, and you took me in just as I felt, you know, Michigan took me in. Like you gave me that warm welcome too, and I was just like, wow, like I feel very freaking like genuinely happy and like just lucky to have been introduced to you.
We all do.
As we all do. So, and then Christy came in and, you know, it was wonderful too, because she came in and I was like, oh my God, she can't stop talking like me too. She's like, and I was like, oh my God, she's got ADHD like me too.
A little bit behind the scenes of aesthetics.
Chatty. We chat.
Renee, it looks like you may not have gotten on your boat down at the harbor this weekend, Tom.
Not this weekend, but we are always grateful that it is still afloat.
Renee has her husband have a gorgeous boat down at the harbor in Dana Point, and they spend a lot of time down there, but not this past weekend, right?
This past weekend.
What I'd love for you to talk about, Renee, is your journey. You told us 27 years, but how did it start? What launched you?
Well, I was raising my daughter, taking care of my family, going to school, and working in the restaurant industry. And on my path of becoming what I wanted to do as a speech pathologist. And my sister-in-law recommended that I would make a great esthetician. And I was like, well, I've always wanted to work for myself. I knew at some point I would own my own business or be my own boss. But I was like, there's no way I'm going to beauty college. That's not what I was going to do. I was going to be a doctor, a lawyer, speech pathologist. I had a long list. And I thought about it and thought, well, you know, I love the skin. And would be a good opportunity to be with my family. It was more conducive than the restaurant business. So I thought, I'll do this in the interim. And I became an esthetician, and I absolutely loved it. I had no idea that where I was going and how long I was going to be doing it, and many paths along the way. I started in a salon, then I worked for myself, and I had set aside X amount of dollars to say, I have 6-7 months before I'm going to not be able to do this anymore on my own. And I just rolled the dice, and I did it, and here I am. One of the best things that ever happened to me in my career, though, was walking through your door randomly. Very random. And we had a nice conversation, and
Yes, we did.
I said, okay, I think I'm on board. And you turned around and said to me, let me know when you're 100% there. And I was like, I got just put to the test. So I'm not a person that makes quick decisions. So I went home and I called you an hour later, and I said, I'm in, I'm coming back. I will give you all the stuff, sign the paperwork, and I'm here.
And that was 17 years ago.
17 years.
We've been blessed to work together 17 years. So
Very much so.
Renee is another one that is just her heart, her soul. You live this industry. You exude client and patient culture. You know, you give peace, which is all about this industry. And I love you've made skincare and facials and kept it within your scope of practice and been successful, as well as raising a daughter as a single mom. It wasn't easy, but you did it. And these stories, like Melissa's, and soon we'll talk to Christy, these are inspiring stories for people in the industry starting out, because the aesthetic world is huge and there's risks people take to leverage themselves in this industry. And none of you guys have done that. And I find that so impressive that you guys have become leaders in your industry and stayed within your scope. I love that. And I love you.
Likewise.
Now we get to introduce the baby.
The newbie.
The newbie. 4 years later, right?
I know.
4 years
That's
later.
right. We're up there.
But Christy,
Yeah.
what's cool about you is that you carry you carry a license as an esthetician in California. And what I find interesting about your journey, and you tell us about it, but what I find interesting is what threw you into esthetician school in the first place. It was not on your radar.
No.
So tell us about it.
Okay, it is a good story. So I was always kind of what you said. I always wanted to own my own business. Just had no idea. I had 3 kids at that time. They were all teenagers, almost grown, and I knew it was time for that second season of my life because it was going to be over. So it's obvious, and I really just set out to find something I could do to make money for my kids' college. And I mean, it really wasn't this huge, ambitious goal. And I started, I had been getting my eyelashes done. And actually the girl who was doing my eyelashes just kept saying, you'd be really great at this. And I was like, no. I think I said no for about 1.5 years. And then I said, what the heck, I'll try it for a summer. So I took the summer and started doing it. And it was very, very challenging, way more challenging than I thought. But there was just something in me that I just stayed with it. And at that time, I found myself single. And so it was really what was in front of me. And I became single to my surprise. And I just started opening the door and taking clients. And at that time in the industry, which has changed a lot in 10 years, it was very referral based, which is still huge in the beauty industry. But it was significant. I wasn't on social media, didn't even really understand any of that. And I just started handing out cards and they just flocked in, kind of what Melissa was saying. I just was busy 6 days a week doing lashes. And for me, it was a godsend because I needed to support my family now. And so it was just a blessing. And at that time, I didn't need an esthetician license, and that changed shortly after. So made the decision to go to night school. And shout out to the night school girls. So during the day, I would do eyelash extensions all day and go to school at night. And that took me 8 months of the most furious schedule. And I did it. Yeah.
That's awesome. And that's what I really wanted you to highlight, and I'm glad you did, the scope of practice changing, because back then you had a group of people literally making a living at doing something. We had at the time, I had I had a girl working in here, and she'd been working here for several years, and you didn't need a license. And then that happened, and it really affected a lot of people, and a lot of people did not step up.
Right.
You did.
Yes.
You did. And you followed the rules, and you said, I'm going to do this right. And you sacrificed.
Yeah, I did.
And I love that.
And it was full of people like me. I mean, the night school was the girls who already were in the industry doing makeup, tanning, and eyelash extensions. That was mostly the night school group because everyone had to, we already had businesses. So we'd start in the morning working and then go to school till 10 o'clock at night, Monday through Friday, and you could not miss. That was
But you do understand that you and your friends are outliers because not a lot of people are able to have the wherewithal to do that. And I find that super impressive. And I love that. You stand up to the challenge and you do it.
Yeah.
And now you've transitioned a little bit more.
Right. So then I thought, I have a lot of really good ideas. I'm like also being very chatty. I can get to my job. I also have a very busy brain. So I thought it would be great to start a clothing line, and it would be great to become a PMU artist. And I already had eyelashes going. So I did all of those things at one time. And even though people tried to say, you can't do all those things at one time, I was like, I can. But yes, so the journey has been so fun, and met so many awesome people. I started PMU about 6 years ago, and now thanks to COVID, really, it was a challenging time, and we'll talk about that. But COVID actually blessed me with an opportunity to focus on another craft that I'm very passionate about. So right when it happened, it didn't seem like a blessing, but now it's post. I'm super blessed because I get to do both now. And I mean, thanks to you for giving me the opportunity as well. And I would love to talk about that later. But no, I can do both. And I'm super blessed to love the two things that I do offer, ombre powder brows and the lash extensions. I feel so blessed that I get to do both of these things. But I consider myself an artist first, and then a business owner. So I get to do my art every day, and that just makes my soul feel alive and feel happy.
Okay, so now I'd like to talk about scope of practice. This industry, like we say, is the wild, wild west because every state treats an esthetician differently with their scope of practice. It's super confusing. The board, I believe, is trying to be more out there with their information. They're sending out emails now, but it's very, what we learn in school, I'm not quite sure if it's up to date with how we're practicing. So let me read something from the board. They state this: it is important for an esthetician to operate within their scope of practice and adhere to regulations and guidelines set by their licensing board. Performing risky medical procedures without the appropriate qualifications and training can lead to serious consequences for both the esthetician and their client. So my question to you all is, Renee dealing with chemical peels and facial peels, and Melissa dealing with waxing, where you're removing hair off the face, and eyelash tinting. Christy dealing with lashes. Do you feel you learned how to mitigate damage if somebody had an allergic reaction? Did you get that in school? Did you have to learn it yourself? Let's go to Renee.
We learned safety in school, but never, at least as I remember, it never went to the next step. Those were things that I had to do after beauty college.
So no medical intervention. They don't teach you.
No, I don't remember that at all. But we trial by error or educating ourselves differently, having conversations. But basically, in that specific instance, I also found that communication and consultation up front were most important, and following up with it. But those were things I had to learn for myself.
I was going to say, Melissa, do you feel the same, like whether it was Michigan or California?
Yes, I do feel the same because, things like client aftercare, that's not quite taught, and I definitely agree with everything that Renee just said. I learned a lot of things outside, either with advanced training or through mentors that, people that I worked with. But there was, in beauty school, I learned a lot of how to disinfect, how to go through the basic motions of certain services, but it wasn't really in depth for the specialty I wanted to specialize in, especially.
So did you feel you learned, Christy, what to look for with inflammation? If somebody had a problem where it was out of your scope and maybe you needed to refer it, did they highlight it back then at all? Because you went to school a little later than the rest of us.
I feel like because of my skill was eyelash extensions, and then going to esthetician school after my business had already started, eyelash extensions were not really highlighted at school. So I felt like it was more of a business decision for me. What does the state of California require for me to run my business? It really wasn't a skill decision. Everything I learned as well was advanced training and classes that I took outside. So for me, it was more of a business permit to run my business in California. So it really had nothing to do with my skill set. That portion of esthetician school is underdeveloped.
Yeah.
That's a good word.
Underdeveloped is good because not everyone is as self-driven or even mature enough. A lot of younger girls, we can speak to the younger girls, go into this industry and they only know what they know. They have the license and they start practicing. So I feel like if we could speak to the board, we might have a place for changing some things, since this aesthetic industry is booming. There are procedures out there that people are practicing in, and maybe they're just not sure the young esthetician or the new esthetician thinks she can perform. So maybe it's not always her fault. Maybe there's a place for us to focus on scope of practice and mitigating some damages or some intervening when we see inflammation or a problem while we're in school, because we're supposed to learn health and safety. And so I just feel like maybe if we as a community can get that across, it would be a good thing, right?
Agreed. Absolutely. Yeah, agreed.
Is Michigan, Melissa, what is an esthetician scope in Michigan?
Well, let's say, for example, what I specialize in. So when I moved to Michigan, I had left California, and California, for example, had just banned tinting.
Oh, yes.
So tinting of the brows, tinting of all tinting. And then when I moved to Michigan, it was not banned. So I was like, woohoo, because that is a big part of the service I provide. It's really important with tinting the eyebrows and the lashes. Now, where I think it's interesting is that certain things are okay, which wouldn't make sense to me. It's like, okay, you can put certain chemicals on the eyelashes and eyebrows, but you can't put a more simple chemical. Mm-hmm. So like, okay, it's a chemical reaction to, like, let's say, lift eyebrows, do eyebrow lifting. So that would have been okay, but tinting wasn't okay. So it didn't make any sense. So when I moved back to California, about a year into moving back, no, actually it was during the pandemic that all of a sudden California decided to allow tinting again. So that's where things get a little confusing.
I believe the boards they have to play catch up right now because there's so much changing. Something interesting, I know Christy doesn't perform this, and we'll go to you afterwards, but Christy, for years, estheticians weren't allowed to touch a blade to the face and do what's called dermaplaning. And as of 2022, they amended their laws, and now they allow that as well as the tinting on the face. But what they've done differently with that giving more of a medical type of procedure in the hands of an esthetician, which I think is appropriate, they pulled back on how they get their license. So now they only take a written test. There's no practical implementation. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, actually, we were just discussing that, Melissa and I, because I think that, going into choosing, I think everyone should get their esthetician license, honestly, and I tell people this all the time. And California has made it so simple, but you're talking about scope of practice. What are you really going to esthetician school for? At this point, you're starting your own business, and that is what California is pretty much focused on, is head knowledge. And I feel like people in this field, we're creatives, and it's important for us to learn skills and be creative. We work with our hands, literally work with our hands. So we think it's kind of funny because they're literally eliminated touching anything with your hands for the test. So it's just knowledge. So basically it's a business decision, and you're going to have to seek whatever skill, advanced training that you want to do in this industry. Mm-hmm. And I mean, awesome, because California is fantastic for the beauty industry. If you want to be the top in your field, there's people who are training at the top level. So it pretty much highlights the fact that you're not going to learn how to or be required to be certified to actually wax a brow. So you're going to need to go and get certified for that.
Absolutely.
Or how to do a proper facial in your scope, or how to put on lash extensions or whatever. So it's forcing the obvious. You know, you're going to get a piece of paper from the state of California that allows you to have your own business. Now go highlight a skill that you're interested in. I mean, that's how I look at it, the breakdown.
Yeah.
Where maybe I was kind of confused when I went to esthetician school. I thought they would have a eyelash section that I might learn something or, you know, show me the full scope of practice that I could do, but it just was a little different. Now it's obvious. You're going for the paper, which you need to own your own business.
Absolutely.
If you're in the aesthetic world, you're an entrepreneur, basically. I mean, 9 times out of 10, like, you need to know how to run your own business anyway. So that's the plus side. It's obvious. It's a piece of paper.
Something they don't teach you either.
Yeah.
But yeah, I
True.
I find also that the education in the esthetician realm is very limited, at least in the esthetician realm. I'm not sure about the waxing and the lashing. They seem like they're at an advantage. They do a lot more of advanced education, but it's generally focused, I see, more on product. A company has a product, they will educate you. Is that what you guys see in your specialties? If you want advanced education, is it offered pretty much only by a company that sells a product?
It depends on the avenue you take. Like certain classes, if you're going and they're usually complimentary or whatever, yes, they're promoting it, whatnot. In the past, the companies that I actually paid money to go to, even though it was a product, when I got, certification in being a paramedical esthetician, I got a lot out of that, even though we were using that product, but I got more information from it that I needed, that I would not, at the time, it was harder to get back then. So the classes was the way to go. It's been a long time since I've paid for that level of education, but I also had the advantage of working in a medical office as well.
Where we can bounce stuff,
Yes,
right?
100%.
We can bounce stuff because education's expensive.
It is expensive.
And which one do you do? Where do you go? So maybe there is a lot of value in these companies that come out and want to sell their product, and they'll give you little nuggets of information. I think that if you get free education like that by taking a course or buying a product, I think go for it. I think it could be good for everyone involved.
I feel like I could speak to the education part because I'm a certified junkie. I think I have about 6 or 7 certifications in PMU and probably 3 or 4 in eyelash extensions. So, I love to sign up for a class, and especially in my field because it is always evolving and changing. I use a lot of different products. I love to try new lashes. I love to try new tweezers and glue, and always looking for what could service my clients better. And then in permanent makeup, which is not part of the esthetician side as well, it is your mentors, the artists that they're showing you their method. So the value is not in the product. The value is not in the machine I buy or in the tweezers I buy, the artistry. So I really look for artists that I love their result and their work. And I've learned a lot because of so many classes that I've gone to about what I'm looking for now at this stage in my career for both things. So the products are just kind of a product junkie. Mm-hmm. And I'll try it and see what works for me. So I'm always looking for someone that offers me the most skill, information, and accessibility for questions after.
So I know we've been sitting here talking about scope of practice of estheticians, and if we need to have a separate board, and this has been discussed, I think, for years, and for some reason it's held with resistance. It could be money related, of course, but I think our industry, and tell me what you guys think, there's far too much involved in an esthetician's scope. And we're going to put up on the screen the scope of practice of an esthetician so you can all look at it right now. Compared to a hairdresser, which is a half a page, we've got a page and a half. So there's a lot more going on, and we need a lot more attention, I think, to be able to educate and license people appropriately. So I don't know, what do you guys think?
100%.
about that.
But I'm not willing to go to nursing school just to do certain things in order to make those things happen. Thankfully, dermaplaning is one of them. Microneedling's not in this scope. I don't want to go to nursing school to do that, but it's a wonderful thing.
Yeah. Well, you've been successful. I think that's the point here. I want this to bring hope to you estheticians out there that have just got your license in California and you're ready to go do Botox. Don't do that.
Yes.
No bueno.
That's another art.
You're also,
No.
it's not in your scope. That's why I need to be clear. I think I might need to be clear with some of you. Nor is microneedling, nor is nanopin. There's a lot of things you need to be okay with when you spend the money to get your esthetician's license. And I would take Christy's advice. Look at it as I'm going to be an entrepreneur. I'm going to start my own business and have freedoms. And that is the best thing I think we all have in this life, right? This is a full-time gig for us.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And this would hurt if we didn't work anymore.
Well, it wouldn't be as fun, that's for sure.
Melissa, would you think it would be a good idea that we could possibly, if we spun off and had our own board, we had an apprenticeship hours attached to that where you needed to go out and find somebody to work under?
I think it's great.
I'd be willing to do that for someone.
Have you ever been touched by an unskilled, or I should just say underskilled esthetician that hasn't touched people? You know what I mean? That hasn't had experience in touching people?
Yeah.
I mean, they touch you like they're like,
Yeah.
you could feel it. You know what I mean? That apprenticeship really gets you in the motions of like actually doing the behind the chair work where you're touching people. There is something to that. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. It's the support, right?
Yeah.
An instructor in a program has a room full of girls. She can't really spend the time on you in that fashion. So I think advanced education, looking for it, is right now where the girls need to go.
Mm-hmm.
Is get yourself advanced, know your scope, and you can be super successful. You're seeing it right in front of me right now. These girls, years of experience, had their own businesses successfully, and they should empower you to start your own and do it within your scope and do it with honor and integrity, and it'll be neat to see where you fly, right?
Yeah, excitingly. We need all the more power in the world to the new girls coming in.
Because not all of them, we're gonna wrap this up, okay? And we're gonna wrap it up with one little year called 2020 that changed a lot of people's lives and a lot of people's industries. And a lot of people left this industry in 2020. That would be COVID, for you that were not born yet. Watching this podcast and it says 20 years ago. Still airing.
Yes.
And I just shout out that, we made it through, and I know you guys are stronger on the other side of it. What was the highlight of COVID, Christy?
Oh, wow. Okay.
Because it wasn't positive, I feel like.
It was so much positive now looking back. In the moment, not so much, let's be honest. But for me, it changed everything. I was working as a solo artist, and COVID, let's say, gave me the forced opportunity to, I actually met Jerry this way through the network of women in my industry. I was looking for a place where I could work out of because my personal circumstances were changing so much. And that's how I met Jerry and Renee and Melissa. And this has been, for my career and personal life, all blessing. And I would love to say on camera how grateful I am to have met all of you, and how grateful I am that Jerry really I wasn't promising anything. She just literally took me in, and I cried that day in my car because I was going through so much transition myself. And so it was just like the hope that I needed. So And it also blessed me with, like I already said before, it gave me the opportunity to focus on another form of art that I'm very passionate about, permanent makeup. And
Which you're very good at, by the way.
I try hard.
And we're Christy right now, so that you know, we're showing a picture of your before and after so people can see your work. I think that's important to see. And she does a really great job. And I'm proud of you that you've stepped outside your comfort zone.
I have. Thank you. You guys have
a leap of faith.
Yeah,
Took
a very big leap of faith.
That's great.
Yeah.
A COVID leap of faith.
So if it wasn't for COVID, I maybe wouldn't have pushed myself outside of my own, working on my own as a solo artist. And it's been nothing but blessing. And also maybe I would not have given myself the space to be creative in another field. I would have, just continued with the one. So, for me, it's been wonderful.
And a colleague.
Silver lining.
I mean, you have a colleague right here, and Melissa. I mean, the two of you guys, Melissa does the waxing, which she explained, and she is amazing. She's a freehand artist. And she'll be like, what do you think about this? Da, 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 da. And I love that because we never stop learning from each other.
I have actually appreciated that so much about Melissa as well, because ultimately we're trying to give the best service to our clients.
Absolutely.
And that I think that her and I complement each other because we both have the same mission. How can we, let's just say brows, how can we give this woman the best brows on the planet? And Melissa will say, I think you're a good candidate for permanent makeup. And then I will say, you should really keep them cleaned up. After I shape them, then they go to Melissa for cleaning them up and tinting as well. So I feel like in that way, we work really well together because we
I've
see
seen the
client.
work where they get their brows done and then they don't get the hair removed.
Exactly.
Those work really, those are important.
Yes.
I'm glad you highlighted that.
Yes.
Yeah.
It works. We really complement each other because we'll see the potential in someone's brows.
And you both have a phenomenal eye for it.
Yes.
Not everybody does.
Not everybody does.
That's a,
Yeah. Thank you. It's
That
fun.
goes a long
I
way.
think we have a lot of fun. Yeah.
It really is.
What was your COVID experience, Melissa?
Gosh, so much uncertainty.
Yeah. And there's that word.
Craziness. It was actually, it was fun. I'm like,
It had its fun.
I'm being so cryptic right now.
You're being very cryptic.
Very cryptic.
Because we still all saw each other during COVID.
Yeah.
Yeah, we saw each other.
Safely.
Oh, it was 6 feet apart.
After we're trained in health and safety, you're trained in this field in health and safety. And so it was kind of an insult, I think, to a lot of people in the industry that we were one of the last industries, at least estheticians were the last industry and hairdressers to get the okay to go back to work. To me, being I can call myself a medical professional, I think it's shameful because it was a time that I think if we rewrite it and look back, I think a lot of people that made these decisions should have their head in the sand and be ashamed, their tail between their legs. And a list of other things like leaving our elderly to die alone in the hospital. What else did you learn from COVID? Do you feel like you're stronger now after COVID, like business-wise?
I do. And with the support of, I feel like we're such a powerhouse together.
Agreed.
All of us, because we did empower each other. You definitely did, and thank you for that. And also just the knowledge and you keeping us up to date and clear on things, like the truth.
Yeah.
That was really important. There's so much misinformation. So I really do, if anything, I appreciate that the most from you and all your support. I'm just, I think gratitude, really, that's what I got from that.
That's a beautiful word. That's a beautiful word.
So
what about you, Renee?
There's a few things. at first I was completely devastated because in all of my career, I've never been told that my work was non-essential. And and that I couldn't provide for my family. So that was that hurdle first. But I definitely feel blessed that I was in the right environment. And there was no denying being here at the right time with you, not just with you all these years and having our relationship and the strength and all of the rest of the girls, but most importantly, having the truth, being educated, because you were in school, you were furthering your education at the time, and I would have been lost in that because that was a big thing to unravel. That the last part, which I do have a lot of elderly clients over the years that had been with me for years, and it reset is when my business, but it also, I never got into this business because of touch. I was in it for skin. That was my wheelhouse. That was my fascination. Mm-hmm. When I first became an esthetician, I did not realize the power of human touch. Mm-hmm. And I have many stories over the years, but I won't get into it. But when we went through COVID, it gives me chills because there were a lot of people that needed to be touched. Mm-hmm. And so it reiterated that what I do
was non-essential.
Non-essential. It wasn't just about, it's never just been about the skin behind my door,
right?
My treatment.
Right? I agree with you.
There's a bazillion other things that happen and that come back every day and gifts that are every day. But to be able to give that, especially in that time, and to let people know that it was safe and that we don't have to be here and afraid of dying or getting sick or whatever. And that, like babies too, it's like, so it was very important. And so that was my, one of the other bigger takeaways. But I was definitely blessed for this crew, as I am always. But it was a very special time to be part of this Beauty Outlaw.
Well, Beauty Outlaw.
And that's why you're born.
And I would like to wrap it up because we could talk all day.
As we have.
All night. As we do. More to come. And say that you estheticians out there or anybody listening, find your people. Mm-hmm. Your people will help you. You can't do it yourself. You need your people. People support you and they empower you and they pick you up when they don't want to sit on a panel and be interviewed. But they do it because you've built a relationship and they trust you and they feel like they can't let you down. And I love these girls for that. I am so blessed in my journey. I will share my journey in a few episodes of my esthetician journey, because that's where I started, humbly in 1989. And I will share my journey, and it's a tough one, so be there. Yes. You'll enjoy it. And ride my journey with me up and way down, and then back up again. And this is why I'm up again. Yeah. So thanks for joining us today. I love you girls.
Love you too.
They're the best. And go to their Instagrams. Their Instagrams will be on the bottom of the podcast. They are, if you want to get in with them, good luck. But you can try. And you can try. And you should try. But if you want to be mentored too, reach out to them. They have a lot to offer and a lot to give. And we do here. We have training here, but that's to come. We'll have more information on that. But really, you can always reach out to these girls. They'll answer your questions. If you're interested in getting in waxing, what wax does Melissa use? How did Christy transition into doing tattooing, permanent makeup from lashing? Renee, come on now. Come on now. This girl is the gift that keeps giving. So anyways, thank you for being here on the Beauty Outlaws first episode ever. Esthetician Diaries. And we'll be back next quarter, won't we, ladies?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Bye.
Thank you, guys.